Hola, clase. Hoy vamos a estudiar los adjetivos demonstrativos. We use adjectives all the time to describe objects. We can use adjectives to describe the color of objects. Like I could say, can you please bring me my red book over there? Or where is my green book? We can also use adjectives to describe the number of objects. So I can say I read the book, which means I read one book, right? Or I could say I read some books, which would mean that I read an unspecified number of books, but more than one. We can also use possessive adjectives to tell who is the one that owns a certain object. So I could say, my book is on the table, or your book is on the table. So my and your are possessive adjectives. Demonstrative adjectives are adjectives that describe how close a certain object is to the person who is speaking. So as you're going to see in the upcoming slides, demonstrative adjectives are very useful in a conversation when we're trying to be specific about what object we're talking about based on how close it is to us. Our demonstrative adjectives that describe proximity or how close an object is to us are really easy. There's actually only 4. So if I am talking about a book that's very close to me as a speaker, then I would say this book in English, right? If I wanted to specifically talk about this book that's really close to where I'm standing, I would say this book in English. If I wanted to talk about all of these books that are really close to me in English, I would say these books, right? And so you would know which books that I'm talking about. I'm talking about these that are close to me, not these that are far away over here. Now, if I did want to talk about those books that are farther away, maybe I want to talk about one specific book that is further away from me, and I wanted you to bring it to me, then I might say that book, right? That book. I might even add over there, that book over there, or that book there. And you would know that I'm not wanting this book, I'm wanting that book. All right. Now, if I want all of the books over there, or I'm referring to all of the books that are way over there, I would say those books over there. And remember, those books over there are different than these books over here. So this and that, these and those are demonstrative adjectives that we can use in English to help people know what books we are referring to. It would be interesting to go back and I could record this slide and just say this book, that book, these books, those books, and see if you could tell about which stack of books I'm talking about. And you probably could, because these adjectives really do work really well when we're trying to direct people to the objects that we're talking about. Now, I have to be honest with you. Spanish is a little bit more tricky, and not because the way that we talk about the world is any different. We still talk about objects that are close to us, objects that are further away from us, and then objects that are, like really, really, really far away. It's just that in Spanish, you'll remember that we have something called number and gender with all of our nouns, and we have to make sure that we match the number and the gender of our nouns when we use adjectives to describe them. So we can't just say the red house or the red book. We have to say la casa roja, el libro rojo, and then when it's plural, again, we have to change all of our adjectives to match those. So los libros rojos and las casas rojas, right? It's pretty complicated. And so as you can imagine, in English, if we have 4 demonstrative adjectives, that means in Spanish, we actually have 16 demonstrative adjectives. So I'm going to do my best to organize these for you so that you can learn them and make sense of them. So if you are talking about objects that are close to you, like they're right here beside you, then you're going to want to say in English, this or these, right? And this is how you would do that. So if it's a singular masculine noun like libro, you're going to say este libro, which would be like saying this book. If it's a group of books, so libros, they're still masculine, but now there's a group. You're going to have to say estos libros. You're still just saying these books then, all right? If you're talking about something, a noun that's feminine in Spanish, like la casa, the house, then you actually have to say esta casa. You can't say este anymore. So esta casa is saying this house. And if you have multiple houses, you're going to use estas casas. So estas casas aquí, these houses here. So these are the first four demonstrative adjectives in Spanish, and they describe objects that are close to you. So este, estos, esta, estas, this and these. If you want to talk about objects that are farther away from you, maybe they're over there, they're on the other side of the room, then you're going to use a different set of demonstrative adjectives. In English, we would say that when we're talking about an object, a single object that's farther away. And if we're talking about a group of objects that are farther away, we would say those in English. So let's look at how we say that and those in English. If we want to say that book, so libro, we would say ese libro. And if you want to say those books over there, you would say esos libros. If you want to say that house over there, you'll say esa casa. And to say that, those houses, then you would say esas casas. All right. That's how you say that and those. Ese, esos, esa, esas. And finally, if you want to talk about objects that are the furthest away, that are way over there, you're going to use these four adjectives. Now, in English, we really don't have a third set. We still just use that and those in English. So in English, if we're talking about something that's really far away, we just have to add a lot of extra words to our sentence. So like this book that's right here beside me, that book that's over there, and then that book way over there. And the same with then these books that are here close to me, those books over there, and then those books way over there. But in Spanish, they actually have a different set of adjectives for the objects that are furthest away, like that are farthest away from us. So these are those. I'm using lots of demonstrative adjectives as I teach this. You guys can see how important they are. So for a masculine noun that's singular, like libro, we would say aquel. So aquel libro. If it is masculine but plural, we would say aquellos libros. If it is feminine and singular, we would say aquella. And if it's feminine and plural, we would say aquellas, aquellas. So aquel libro, aquellos libros, aquella casa, aquellas casas would be like that and those way over there, or like the furthest away from us. All right. I want to do a couple practice problems with you and show you what this will be like on your quizzes or tests, okay? So you're going to see a sentence like this: Me gusta blank libro rojo. And then in parentheses further away. And so I'm wanting you to use a demonstrative adjective here, esto, estos, esta, aquella, ese, something like that, all right? And so you need to look at your noun, which is going to be what comes right after the blank. So libro, book, okay? And that is masculine, right? And it's singular, okay? And then you know that we're talking about something that's further away. And there's a picture here to help you. So we know that it's a red book. So we actually know that it's this one right here, right? So if this is the person who's talking, this is me, yo, and I'm talking about that red book there. It's a little bit further away from me, so I'm not going to say this red book. I'm saying that red book, right? And so if I consult my chart to go back and look and see what I should use, I would know that I need to use ese for this one, all right? Me gusta ese libro rojo. So I like that red book. The next sentence, me gustan blank libros aquí. And in parentheses, it tells me that I'm talking about the books that are close. So we can assume that it's these here, right? And they're the ones that are right beside me as the speaker. So I'm going to say these. If I went back and looked at my list, if it's masculine, libros is masculine and plural, I would see that I need to use the demonstrative adjective estos. Okay, so there's multiple clues you're looking for. Look at your noun and decide whether your noun is singular or plural. Singular or plural. And decide whether it is masculine or feminine. Okay. And once you know that, then you will also want to look at what's in parentheses. So is it something that's close? Is it something that's further away? Or is it something that's farthest away? Okay. And so that will help you narrow it down and figure out which demonstrative adjective out of the 16 you need to use. Okay. So this will just take lots of practice in doing these over and over and over again, looking for the patterns, and you will be able to figure them out. I promise you. Let me read you a sentence and see if you can figure out which book I'm talking about. So, yo quiero aquel libro verde. So think about that. Aquel libro verde. So the color does help. Verde, you know that it's either the book that's a little bit away from me or that's really far away from me. Then hopefully you can look at your list and see aquel. Aquel is describing something that's furthest away, right? So if you figured out that it is this book here, or sorry, I should say that book way over there, then you would be correct. Here's two more ejemplos for you. So yo quiero comprar blank casa café. And then in parentheses, you see that this brown house that we're talking about is close. So I want to buy blank brown house. And we can assume that if it's close, if we look on here, there's only two brown houses, right? We know that it's not this brown house. So that means that it has to be this house, which makes sense because it says that it's really close to me. And, I am right here. Okay. So we would just need to look at our chart then. We would look then at our noun, casa. That's feminine, right? And it's also singular. Okay. So we would know by looking at our chart that we're going to use esta, which is basically saying this. Yo quiero comprar esta casa café. I want to buy this house, this brown house here. Yo quiero comprar blank casa verde. And this one tells us that we're talking about the one that's farthest away. All right. So it's not this greenhouse. It is this greenhouse. And it's very, very far away. Right. So we're still working with a singular feminine noun. But we are going to use a different adjective because we're talking about the one that's furthest away. So we're going to use aquella. Yo quiero comprar aquella casa verde. So I want to buy that house, way over there or all the way down there. All right. So we will practice this a lot in class. And the more and more you practice it, the more comfortable you'll get with it. I just wanted to show you a bird's eye view of all of these demonstrative adjectives so that you can see all 16 right beside each other. So, the ones on the left are talking about objects that are close to you, the ones in the middle, objects that are a little bit further away, and then the ones on the right, objects that are the furthest away. And there is a handout on Canvas, so you guys can get on there and print that out. And you're definitely going to want to have that with you so that you can search for the correct demonstrative adjective that you should use, depending on whether something is close, further, or furthest away, and then whether it is singular or plural, or whether it's masculine or feminine. The good thing is you know that all of these demonstrative adjectives that are talking about something that's close, they all are really similar. They all have that est, este, estos, esta, estas, and then they usually do have a pretty good pattern. You know, if it's masculine and plural, it's going to have an os on the end. If it's feminine and plural, it has an as, and then usually an a or an o on the end, but of course sometimes an e on the end for masculine. And you'll see that here as well, an e on the end there, but then a, os, as, and then these all have kind of a similar pattern with that es at the beginning, the es, ese, estos, esta, estas. Then of course all of the ones over here also kind of have a pattern going. My students last year, they pointed out there's like an L, like he on the end there. There's an eos like they, an ea like she, and an as like they that are girls. And so that really helped them think of like he is singular, masculine, they are masculine, plural. Ea is singular, feminine, and as is feminine and plural. So watch for those patterns, and I hope that will help you kind of at least organize these into the 3 different groups, okay?